There are days when your mind feels completely overwhelmed, but somehow your hands still want to knit. You're exhausted, the world feels loud, your brain is buzzing, and the last thing you want is a chart, a complex colorwork yoke, or counting every few stitches. Today I want to share knits for when your brain is tired, but your hands still want to move. The kind of projects that feel like a deep exhale after a long, stressful day. And the best thing, many of these patterns come straight from you. Your comments, your favorites, the knitting patterns that you like to knit on your most demanding days. So if this is something that you feel like you need right now, let's build your calm mind knitting list today. I've gathered together 25 knitting patterns. A few of them are actually crochet to help you relax and slow down after one of those stressful days. Let's get started. Let's begin with what many of you mentioned is their most mindless, comforting project of all, and I do have to agree, socks. Especially when you have a very plain pair of socks that is knitted in all over stockinette stitch. Those are also called vanilla socks. It does not get much easier and mindless than that. In addition, socks are also very portable and you can easily put them down and pick them back up without losing your place in the pattern. One pattern that I particularly like and that I've made myself earlier this year are the I'm So Basic socks from Summer Lee, and this is my pair here. As you can see, I even decided to knit them all in one colorway instead of using contrast colors for the heels, cuffs and toes like Summer Lee did in her sample. So this makes it even easier. And I do have to say, I really love having a good pair of mindless socks on the needles at all times. Two other similarly great options are both from Kay, also known as the Crazy Sock Lady. You can choose which of her patterns you want to knit depending on which method you want to use. You can either do magic loop or 9-inch circular. And those two patterns are also knitted from the cuff down and feature a classic heel flap and gusset construction. Now, if you prefer sock knitting from the toe up and maybe a short row heel instead of a heel flap and gusset, I also have a pattern recommendation for you. This pattern is called the Black Cat Favorite Socks by the Black Cat Knitting Company, and you can either choose to knit the socks in all over stockinette or do ribbing for the whole portion of the leg, which I think is also great. And speaking of ribbed socks were also mentioned a lot of times by you as your cozy comfort reset project, and I do have to agree, I also really like knitting ribbed socks. Now there are many patterns available with different increments of ribbing, but I wanted to give you one example, and this is one of my own sock knitting patterns called the Happiness All Around socks, and I have the sock here. As you can see, this is an all over ribbed sock except for the foot that's done in stockinette. And it's also knitted from the cuff down and features this classic heel flap and gusset construction. I think ribbed socks are not only great to knit because they are so repetitive and soothing, but also great to wear because the ribbing tends to be stretchier than a simple stockinette fabric, and this makes it not only very comfortable for you to wear, but also great as a gift knit where you are maybe not completely sure about the actual width of the leg and foot of the recipient. One of my favorite viewer suggestions was a sock knitting pattern that does not require the addition of a heel at all, and it is this heel-less spiral sock, which I think is just genius. This comes in the form of a video tutorial here on YouTube done by Nerdy Knitting, and I'm going to link it for you in the description box along with everything else that I am talking about in this video. Now I am actually very intrigued to knit a pair for myself and see how they feel and how they fit if you just don't add any heel. This seems so interesting to me. So definitely a great suggestion, and I expect a very mindless knitting project as well because you're basically just knitting a very long sock tube. Now, this next one is not a knitting project, but I wanted to share it anyway because it brought me so much calm and joy when I made it 2 days ago. So 2 days ago, my daughter and I, so one of my daughters, the younger one, had a very relaxing afternoon where we did some needle felting together. I have never done needle felting before, but I found it so enjoyable and soothing and almost mindless. You just have to be a little bit intentional about how you use the felting needle so that you do not stab yourself in the finger. But besides that, it is a very fun and relaxing activity. My daughter and I made these angel ornaments together. So this is my angel and this is the one that she made. It took us around 2 hours for one angel. And yeah, I think they turned out quite well. Since I had never done this before, I had ordered like a whole kit with everything you need for needle felting on Etsy from a shop that's based in the Netherlands. I'm going to link it for you in the description. And for the angel ornaments themselves, we followed a tutorial from Zainab Mohamed Ali, who has a class about needle felting on Skillshare. So in the class, she teaches how to make an angel, a candy cane and a robin ornament. And I have plans to do both the candy cane and the robin ornament as well this month. Skillshare is very kindly sponsoring today's video. And in case you don't know them yet, they are an online learning community with a large amount of creative classes that are taught by amazing world-class creatives like professional illustrators, renowned graphic designers, and successful entrepreneurs. They have classes about crafts and DIY, art and illustration, design, home and lifestyle, and many more. And Skillshare not only makes a great gift for yourself, but also for the loved ones in your life. The first 500 people to use my link in the description or scan the QR code will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Plus, you can gift Skillshare memberships to your friends and family. Get started today, and thank you so much, Skillshare, for sponsoring today's video. Let's move on to the next category, which is hats that practically knit themselves. And we are going to start with your number 1 most recommended pattern, the Musselburgh by Isolde Teague. And I also made this myself earlier this year. And yeah, it is indeed a great pattern. It is very mindless once you are past the cast on of the crown. This is indeed a bit fiddly, but after that it's just miles and miles of stockinette. And if you are now asking yourself how this small hat can have miles and miles of stockinette, let me show you, because it's actually a very long tube that you are making. So you are casting on one side and then you knit miles and miles of stockinette, like I said, and then in the end you do decreases for the second crown and then you fold the hat in on itself and you have a beautiful hat. As you can see in the pattern picture, she actually has a folded brim so that the hat looks like this. But since I was using leftovers for my hat, I didn't have enough yarn to do the folded brim, but I don't think this is going to be my last Musselburgh hat, and I am for sure going to do the double folded brim for the next incarnation. But yeah, definitely a pattern that I can completely recommend. Next up, let's talk about the classic ribbed hat by Pearl Soho, and I feel like ribbing is the perfect relaxing project if you are looking for something very repetitive and that truly gets you into a great rhythm. And the classic ribbed hat is perfect for that. It is also a free pattern and I've made it myself numerous times. I love it especially for gift knits because the ribbing has so much stretch to it. And I also think it's a very great pattern for beginners. In fact, I actually taught my daughter and 2 of her friends how to knit last year, and they all made the classic ribbed hat as their first knitting project. And this is the version that my daughter made. So she was 10 at that time. So I think that clearly shows that this is a great pattern for beginners because it's so simple, but also for more advanced knitters because it is such a beautiful, repetitive and easy knit. And it also makes for a great hat, of course. Pearl Soho in general has a large portfolio of knitting patterns. Many of them, or most of them, are available for free, which I think is great. And they particularly have a large amount of classic simple head knitting patterns in their portfolio. I'm going to put up a little picture for you on the screen so that you can see what I mean. So if you're on the lookout for any kind of head knitting pattern that is more classic and simple, but maybe you are not drawn to an all over ribbed head, you should definitely check out Pearl Soho's other head knitting patterns as well. A lot of you also mentioned the Oslo head by Petite Knit as one of their favorite mindless projects. I made this pattern myself last year and I think it's a great winter knit and also makes for a great gift knit. In fact, I knitted it as a Christmas present for my sister. I'm going to put up a picture for you on the screen. But I do have to say it took a lot longer than I was expecting, probably due to the folded brim. And it's a beautiful pattern for sure, but compared to the other two patterns that I just mentioned, it would be my personal least favorite out of the three, just thinking about the enjoyment of the knitting process itself. Let's move on to the next knitting pattern category, which is scarves and shawls that feel like a deep exhale. The first pattern that you recommended is the Be Simple shawl by Carolyn Glaus Tondrak. And it is this very simple, slightly asymmetrical triangular shawl that is knitted with all over garter stitch and has this very cute picot edging on one side. It can be made with a number of different yarn weights, and she says that it is also great for if you have this one skein of a special sock yarn or any fingering skein yarn. Another popular recommendation were the Sophie scarf and the Sophie shawl by Petite Knit. And I think for good reason, those are also very simple, all over garter stitch projects where you are knitting back and forth all the time. This time with a I-cord border. I think those are an easy choice if you're looking for a mindless knit. And the Sophie scarf is the smaller version, which knits up more quickly. And the Sophie shawl is pretty much the same, but on a much larger scale. And the only thing you really have to pay a bit of attention to is the increases and the decreases. The next project was mentioned by many of you as their emotional comfort project, and it is the Half and Half Triangles wrap by Pearl Soho. This wrap is made with two different colors, but you are always only knitting with one color at a time because you knit with the one color first and then switch to the other color. This is a bit of a larger project that does not knit up as quickly, but I think this can be very relaxing and meditative as well if you're doing the same thing over and over again. It's also a garter stitch project, so you're knitting back and forth. And again, you also have to pay a bit of attention to the increases and decreases, but besides that, I think this is a wonderful mindless knitting project option as well. And the last shawl that I wanted to show you is called the Hitchhiker by Martina Behm. This looks a bit similar to the Be Simple shawl. It's again a slightly asymmetrical triangular shawl knitted with all over garter stitch, and it has this sawtooth border. I think this would also make for a great mindless option if this is the type of project you are looking for. But if you are maybe looking for a bit of a larger project, let's talk about the ultimate cozy knitting patterns blankets. Now, the first blanket pattern that I would like to talk about is actually not a knitting pattern, but a crochet pattern, and it is the Battenberg blanket by Sandra Paul, also known as Cherry Heart. And this is a long-term whip of mine, but an intentional long-term whip, because I really only work on this when I feel like it, and it slowly adds to it over time, which I absolutely love. It has also gotten quite huge already, so it's totally already at the point where I can just use it as a blanket. It sits on my couch at all times, but yeah, whenever I want to, I add a couple more granny squares. So as you can see, this is made entirely out of these small granny squares, and you have these alternating colorful ones and the plain neutral ones. And even if you are not a crocheter, you could totally make this blanket because it comes with video tutorials for both how to make the granny squares and also how to join them here on YouTube. I'm going to link it in the description box for you. And this is just such a wonderful project. It's also very portable because you crochet each granny square at a time and then add it to the blanket later on. And another reason why this blanket feels so special to me is that it is made entirely out of my own naturally dyed yarn, and I absolutely love this project for that reason. And it's very beautiful, so I think it's great. And it's also a free pattern, not sure if I mentioned that earlier. So I can 100% highly recommend the buttonwork blanket. Now, a simple garter baby blanket was also mentioned a number of times by you, and there are basically two different ways you can go here. You can either knit it corner to corner, or you can just, cast on a larger amount of stitches for the width and then just knit straight up. Let's have a look at a corner to corner knitting pattern first, and this one is called the Diagonal Baby Blanket by Snufflebean Yarn. Now you can either purchase the pattern on Ravelry or get it for free on her blog. And what you basically do is that you cast on one corner and then you increase and work your way up, knitting back and forth all the time and creating this very squishy, simple blanket. And then if you are at the halfway point, you start decreasing and work your way up to the corner again. I think this is a wonderful, soothing project, and I personally really like to gift blankets for babies because I think they're always very useful and also a lot of fun to knit. So the second option, like I mentioned, would be to simply cast on for the amount of stitches for the width that you want, and then work your way up, knitting back and forth all the time until you're at the desired length. But if you would like to have a knitting pattern for this type of blanket, I have picked out one for you, and it's called the Super Easy Baby Blanket in Morning by Pearl Soho. So that's another free pattern, and as you can see, they have used different colorways in the one blanket, but of course you can also make it just one color. This would make it even simpler, and I really don't think it gets much simpler than that. Then we have the Bounce Blanket by Tinker Knits. I do expect that this pattern does require some brain power to set up, but once you get the hang of the stitch pattern, I think it looks like it would be very repetitive and soothing, and the end result is very beautiful as well. And looking at this pattern, I think it would be great for a gradient or maybe a self-striping yarn. And then we have the Double Thick Pot Holder by Daniela Taylor for Pearl Soho. That is another free pattern and a recommendation by you. Some of you said that this is your go-to project when you get this feeling of, I want to make something today. So it is quick, it is easy, it is available for free, and also very useful. So I think this is a great pattern suggestion. Let's move on to the next category, which is Calm Mind sweaters. And the first design that I would like to talk about is the Late Checkout Sweater by Veronika Lindberg, also known as Kudo Vekika. This sweater is knitted from the top down and has this drop shoulder design and a relaxed fit, which is great because the sizing is not as critical. And what's also really great about this pattern is that it comes with a full video tutorial here on YouTube where you can follow along for each step. And I think this makes it even simpler. And you have someone to keep you knitting company, which is always great. Now, when it comes to garment knitting patterns as Mindless knits, I do want to put a little disclaimer out that, of course, when you're knitting something top down, you always have to pay a bit more attention at the beginning when you cast on, and then you shape the neck and also the yoke by increasing. This might be not as mindless, but once you are past the point where you have split for the sleeves and the body and you have an all-over stockinette design or another kind of a simple stitch pattern, it truly becomes mindless because there's just miles and miles of stockinette to go. And I personally really like these simpler sweaters as mindless knits after a long day. So we have the Late Checkout Sweater, and I also wanted to show you one with a bit of a different stitch pattern. And I could not create a video like this without talking about one of my favorite knits of all time, the sweater number 28 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. So as you can see, this has some minimal shaping. It's also oversized, but it has a bit of a texture to it. You have these alternating sections of garter and ribbing. And similar to the Late Checkout Sweater, The beginning is a bit more a part where you have to concentrate a bit more, especially when you're doing the increases here. But once you have split for the sleeves and the body, it's just pure joy. And I do have to say, I loved making this piece. The knitting was extremely fun, and I also absolutely loved to wear it. So a huge recommendation from me. Please knit the sweater number 28 if you are drawn to this type of garment style. Another common suggestion from you was to make a super simple raglan tee with minimal shaping and a very predictable construction. I think this is a perfect option for a quiet evening. One pattern that was mentioned a lot is the Tolster tee by Rebecca Clow. And this can go so many different ways. I think it's amazing. You can either do the simple all over stockinette version, you can add some embroidered flowers, you can do stripes, you can add these very cute eyelet rows. I think this is just a wonderful pattern. And it also contains optional bust shaping for the larger sizes, which is also very helpful, of course. Another option that was mentioned a lot is the Cumulus tee by Petite Knit. And I have made this one myself. Looks a bit strange on the hanger here. So I made the Cumulus tee, which is the V-neck version, but it also comes as the Cumulus tee O-neck, which is the crew neck version. And yeah, it's also knitted from the top down with these raglan increases. But I do have to say, if you are looking for a more mindless knit, I would personally go with the O-neck version, because you do have, of course, to pay a bit attention to shaping the V-neck here. But besides that, definitely also a very simple and enjoyable project. And another recommendation from you is the Warm Up Sweater by Espace Tricot. This is also a simple raglan construction that is knitted from the top down. And the sample was knitted with an Aran weight yarn, so a rather thick yarn, which means you also get the instant gratification of seeing it grow rather quickly. I really like the relaxed silhouette and the slightly fitted sleeves of this design, and I think this would be a great relaxing knitting pattern option as well. I hope this gave you some ideas for what to knit when your brain is truly tired but your hands somehow still want to move. Knitting can be such a grounding ritual, and having one simple soothing project on your needles makes such a difference, especially during the holiday season when life somehow tends to feel fuller and faster. I would love to hear from you in the comments. What is your favorite relaxing knitting pattern? The one that you reach for after you had a long day. Thank you so much for spending this cozy time with me. Take good care of yourself and happy knitting. See you next time. Bye.